folks, you know, thanks to our wonderful social media platforms, I have to admit that I have been observing a lot of people on social media with their little clips, their little comments. You know, all these little videos that they do saying, we need to wake up the masses. The masses must be informed about what is happening in the world, how all of the rich, wealthy people, the politicians are stealing all of the money. You know, you hear these sorts of comments online. You hear this sort of commentary. And you've got these people with relatively big platforms telling us all that we need to go out into the world and wake up the population because we need to start a revolution. We need to wake up the world. And you know, I hear this, folks. You know, I hear these people saying that there needs to be a mass awakening. And you know, we need to go out there on our social media platforms, even in the real world, and convince people to join the fight. To join the fight where the people rise up. All right. Now, I see a lot of this. And here's the thing, folks. When someone says, or makes this sort of a call to me, say this person with their social media platform, maybe in the real world too, because we see it in the real world as well. Let's say there are people, both online and the real world, who are trying to convince me that I ought to join some revolution to save the world. The first question I have is, when you say save the world, who are you talking about? Who? Who am I saving? And you know, these people sort of say, oh, well, you know, we need to save, you know, we need to let other people know what's happening in the world. You know, the corruption, the Epstein files, about how we are being taxed into oblivion, about how the money is being stolen and misused and funneled directions away from us. Okay. And we need to, you know, let everybody know that this is happening, because we all need to get together, kumbaya, and start a resistance. Okay, so when somebody makes that sort of an argument to me, I am firstly thinking, who am I saving? Who are these people that I need to wake up? And who are these people that I need to save by informing them about what is happening in the world? Because you know, folks, let me tell you something. These are just my observations. Make of them what you wish. I'm going to tell you something that I saw this morning when I was out walking. I was out having a walk, and I was observing the average person's behaviour. Because, you know, a lot of these people online seem to be under this illusion that we need to wake up the average person. You know, the really average person? That seems to be who we all need to get on board with this revolution. You know, if only the average person realized what was happening. Okay, so the average person, well, I'm out walking this morning and I'm watching some average people. Just average members of the population. And let me tell you what I saw. I saw a dude. You know, have you ever seen people, folks, who wear these contraptions with a big container on their back full of weed killer? That's right, weed killer. You know the way you have this sort of little weed killer backpack that you can put on, and it has all the chemicals, you know, in the back part of it, and you have your little nozzle at the front, and you see these people going around spraying chemicals all over the place. That's what I observed this morning. I observed this dude out and around 8 a.m. He had all of his fancy little fucking weed killing apparatus on him. You know, his little weed killer backpack and his little nozzle, and there he was, going around spraying stuff. Weeds. You know, folks, wouldn't you not think that there is enough pollution and chemicals in the world? You know, isn't that not a logical conclusion to come to? You know, we look at all of these cars and vehicles, all of these combustive engines, all the chemicals and shit that comes out of the back of those, tires against the ground, all the shit that comes out of them as well. Pointing case to my right. You know, you think about all of the big factories in the world, these industrial power plants, all the shit that they're emitting out into the world, all basic businesses and buildings. You know, there is a shit ton of chemicals out there in the world, folks. I think we would agree. The air is polluted. What is it polluted with? Chemicals. We know this. Yet here I am observing some retard with his little weed-killing backpack on, spraying more chemicals into the environment willingly. You know, folks, there's nothing we can do about all the car pollution. You know, all the pollution that comes from cars, all the pollution that comes from businesses, buildings, industrial power plants. These are things that are out of our control. You know, we can't stop people driving their cars. We can't turn up at an industrial power plant and burn it down, no matter how much we would want to do that. And there are all other sources of chemicals and pollution in the world. You know, think about all of the agricultural runoff that goes into our waterways, how polluted our waterways have become. Lakes and rivers, all of this stuff. There are chemicals and polluted shit, generally. It's all over the place. But you know, we can't do anything about this, because these are actions that are being taken by other people. And in many cases, they are actions being taken by big businesses, big organizations, big influential entities. And we can't do anything about them. But you know, folks, you know what we can do? We can, believe it or not, we do talk about this on the show, we can control our own actions. You realize that? And you know, while we may not be able to stem the flow of chemical pollution that makes its way into our environment, we can, in our own little world, in our own little environment, we can do our own bit to try and have as few or as little pollution or chemical residues as possible. That we can control. But of course, what do I see this morning? I see retard Joe out with his fucking chemical backpack spraying the walkways, spraying outside. His fence runs along the side of a public walkway, and here he's out like a retard, spraying chemicals all over the place. Look, does anybody ever stop to think, you know, what is a weed? He's spraying weeds. Well, you know, the process that he's engaging in, spraying chemicals, that's going to cause those chemicals to leach throughout the environment. It's not exactly a very non-specific way to attack the weed. You know, you may hit the weed, but then there's going to be runoff. The chemicals are going to run off. Maybe it'll take a bit of rain and then that'll transport the chemicals elsewhere. In other words, this dipshit is willingly putting more chemicals, more pollution out into the environment, which is probably going to kill more plants, more insects, more things that weren't supposed to be killed. But because there's going to be some residue left, other things are going to suffer. Let's say you have a dog or a cat. Let's say you're a dog or cat person. Well, you know, your dog might be going up to sniff around the fence, sniff around by that vegetation. Your dog is going to inhale or possibly ingest a whole bunch of this chemical residue that dipshit retard Joe was putting out into your local environment. Let's say you've a kid, and your kid, because it's a blob of jelly and isn't fully formed yet, it might start, poking around where all of these chemical residues are. I mean, folks, this is the thing. When I hear these arguments of we need to wake up the world and save the people and create a revolution, I'm thinking, who am I trying to save? This is a bit like our recent live show, when we were talking about, oh, well, Mr. Bandido, are you going to settle down? You know that question? When are you going to settle down? My first question back to that is, settle down with who? Who am I settling down with? And it's the same thing here. We need to create a revolution. We need to wake up the population. A mass awakening. We need to rise up as the people. Who am I saving? Retard Joe out there spreading chemicals into the environment? Why am I using this example, folks? Why am I using this example of this dipshit outside basically spraying chemicals all over this public pathway or walkway? Why am I using this example specifically? Are you telling me that I am supposed to stick my ass out and put my neck on the line for that idiot? Is that what you're telling me? Because that's an average person. And in case you didn't realise, there are far more average people in the population than there are extraordinary people. So are you telling me that I'm supposed to stick my ass out and stand in the line of fire for that? That person is demonstrating to me that they are on fucking autopilot. Most people are. As I've already said, there is so much pollution and contamination in our environment. It's not as if we need more people willingly going out and spraying more shit into the environment. That act alone, that man's actions, sort of tell me all I need to know about him. Call me shallow, folks, for judging him in that way. But to go out and spray, who the fuck uses weed killer? Who uses weed killer? Why would you use weed killer? It's such a sloppy, lazy, retarded way to go about getting rid of weeds. I mean, you're just spraying chemicals all over the place. Non-specifically, you don't know where those chemical residues are leaching into. In fact, you don't even know probably what your weed killer is composed of. You don't know how toxic and dangerous those chemicals are. You just go... What is that? When I observe that sort of autopilot-like behaviour, why would I be looking to wake up or recruit an idiot like that? And I'm using him basically as a proxy for the rest of the population. I'm using him because he pretty much epitomises most of what I see. Just walking around, not thinking, dipshit mode. As if we need more chemicals in the environment. Really, folks. And that's just when I bring this around full circle. And I think of these people online. Let's start a revolution. Folks, there's a big lesson here. If someone wants to go and spray a weed killer, fine. I actually don't care about that. If someone wants to go and do that, it's their life. I'm not going to fucking walk up to them and wrestle the weed killing apparatus off them. I will look at it, in my own head I will think, retard. I won't tell him that, but I'll be thinking that, but I'm not going to interfere. I'm not going to report him to the police. I'm not going to do anything other than think he is a retard. So the concept of spraying weed killer, while I think it's retarded, I ain't going to, be starting a local fucking group here A local organisation, let's stamp out the weed killers in my local area. But you know, here's the lesson from this very simple example. This idea, folks, of saving the world. And it's very tempting when you look at the online space and you hear all of these people in the online space trying to convince you that you need to be part of some big fucking revolution. Some big revolution that's going to overthrow the government and cause an uprising of the people. In other words, you've got people online trying to convince you to stick your neck out for some cause or some purpose. Folks, if the actual cause or purpose is something that you are passionate about, then you fire away. You stick your neck out and you stand in front of the government cannon. You do that. We've talked about this before. If you want to stand in front of the government cannon, you do it. I don't care. But if you're one of these people listening to this show and you're sort of on the fence and you feel as though someone else's goal and ambition for life is being pushed on to you, and you feel as though you are adopting someone else's wishes and desires in this life, you need to pause and think about what you are doing. Folks, I don't want to be part of any fucking revolution or uprising. I'm not interested in that. I'll tell you why. Because when we look at probabilities, if you are part of a revolution or uprising, that means you are going to draw the attention of the government cannon towards you. Now, I don't know about you, but as we've talked about before, personally, I do not have a private army. I don't have anything that would put me in a position to take on the military, the police, or anything. Waste of time. I am here in this life to live my best life. I am not here to adopt the ideology of some other person, which involves me going out into the world trying to convince dipshits like our weed killer friend to try and join a revolution with me that's going to involve me sticking my neck out, sticking my arse out in front of the government's cannon for me to ultimately get my bollocks blown off. Why would I do that? This isn't a goal of mine. It may be a goal of yours. If you want to be a revolutionary, off you go. Fine, you be a revolutionary. But you know, let's not fall into a trap, folks. Let's understand what we're looking at here. You do realise how difficult it is to convince people of fucking anything. It is extremely difficult to convince people of anything, let alone convincing them to join you to be part of a revolution. Folks, you see this dipshit who's out spraying weed killer all over the place? You know, doing this in dipshit autopilot mode. You know, what a lot of people don't realise is the average person who moans and complains about the current state of the world, you know, this is something that people forget about. You see, the average person, they are benefiting from the current setup in the modern world. You know, with their welfare and their benefits and their union. You know, all this? They're fucking meaningless jobs. What, a lot of the jobs that people have, what are they producing? What are they actually bringing to the table for society? You've just got a bunch of people in writing things on a piece of paper, shuffling bits of paper around. And they call that a job? These people who complain about the current setup in the world, they are happy. A whole bunch of them are happy that the world is the way it is because they are benefiting. They are leeching off the government. Yes, I know, when you listen to them, folks, when you listen to their words, they will tell you that it's a disgrace, that the world's a mess, oh, it's terrible. When you listen to their words, you'll hear them bitch, whine and complain. But when you watch their actions, you know what you notice? They ain't that bothered. In fact, they're actually pretty happy about it, because they get to sit in their little meaningless, worthless job. They get paid by the state in some public sector job that offers practically nothing to the world. They sit there completely unproductive. They get paid either a part-time or a full-time wage, and then, you know, if they have mental health problems, you know, the good old mental health? Well, if you've got a mental health problem, you might be able to get, you know, leave off work. You might be able to, you know, go off on fucking disability leave, or whatever the fuck they call it, and then claim your mental health disability benefits. And fuck knows what other universal income benefits. You see these people, folks, that you and I are being convinced to fucking recruit as part of a revolution. These people don't want to be part of a revolution. You see Mr. Weed Killer out there? I would bet my bottom dollar that he couldn't be fucked being part of a revolution. He has no interest. He just wants to go out and spray his weed killer all over the place and fucking sit back and sponge off the government and everybody else. Most people couldn't be arsed, folks. Yet here we are, the true dipshits. Only the true dipshits will bang their heads against the wall and try to convince these people to be part of their team. Folks, this notion of saving the world, Jesus Christ, save yourself. Save yourself and save the people closest to you. That's it. You see, trying to go out into the world, random people, random average people in the population, screw that. If you really want to use your time, energy and attention that way, if you feel really passionate about doing that, then fine, go on ahead, you do it. I don't. I'm only interested in me maximising my existence and trying to help maximise the very small number of people in my inner orbit who I really care about. I want to maximise their existence too. You see, beyond that, beyond myself and the people in my inner orbit, I couldn't give a fuck. Couldn't give a fuck. I'm not looking to join any revolution. I'm not looking to stand in front of any government cannon to be to be defined as a revolutionary uprising of the people. And the lesson here is, folks, do not fall into this trap. Social media, as we've talked about before, can place you in an echo chamber. And you can get placed in these echo chambers where you're getting bombarded left, right and centre with all these different commentators online and these fucking comment sections as well, trying to tell you that you need to go out and try and convince the world, convince everyone in your local area that they ought to join the revolution, the mass awakening. Please realise, the average person, and let's actually just look beyond the average person. Most people in general, folks, don't care. You're in an echo chamber. I know you might think that there are all of these people that need to be wakened. You know, they need to rise from their slumber. Most people don't care about what you care about. You do realise that. Other people have their own lives to live. They have their own things to do. They have their own unique personalities, their own unique goals and ambitions. Most people do not care about what you and I care about. It's actually pretty difficult to find a substantial group of people that has a significant amount of overlap in interests and worldviews. That's very difficult to do. Those people probably exist in little small groups, little clusters. And we don't want to fall into this misguided notion that we need to go out into the world and convince the world. Convince the world. Because I go back to the start of the show, folks. Convince the world. When you say convince the world, who are we talking about? Retard Joe, the weed killer? Are we talking about the people who are bitching, whining and complaining about the current setup in the world, about big government, but secretly are actually benefiting and sponging off the very thing that they are complaining about? Folks, in case you don't realise, the average person makes up most of the population. Like, yes, think of it like a bell curve. Okay? The center of the bell curve, that's the highest point. If you imagine down here is the base, the top of the bell curve is up here, and the bell curve goes down like this. Yes, you get people, you get outliers to the right and left, but they are small in number. The vast majority of people are in the center. They are average people. Most of the population is made up of average people. And once you realize that it's exceptionally difficult to convince people of anything, let alone to get them to basically drop their entire life to become part of your revolution, and then once you also realize that these people have their own lives to live and are probably benefiting in some way from the current setup. And please, folks, do not listen to their words. Their words are bogus. People bitch, whine and complain all the time. They just do it because they are looking to enlist the help of other people. They're looking to build their own little coalition. We see this all the time. Oh, this is tar, it's atrocious. They want to seem hip. They want to seem up to speed. They want to seem like they're in the know by complaining about something that everybody else complains about. Oh, the government's terrible. Taxes. Oh, it's just the politicians, blah, blah, blah. People just say things to sound cool, to build their little coalitions. They don't actually mean what they're saying. Because if they really meant what they were saying, they wouldn't be living here in the exact same circumstances in which they are living. If it was really annoying them that much, they wouldn't be here. They would be taking steps to do something else. But you see, they don't. They bitch, whine and complain, but don't change their behaviour, which tells you that they aren't that interested in changing their behaviour. They don't want to. Once you realise this, folks, this notion of going out into the world and dedicating your life to convincing other people to do things and to see the world the way you see it is, probability-wise, a waste of time. And if you have other things in life that you're more passionate about, you would be far better just funneling your time, energy and attention towards those things. Just you look after number one. You know, folks, there's a great quote. To bring balance to the world, you must first bring balance to yourself. So, you see before you start to get these big grandiose ideas about recruiting average members of the population, have you found balance in yourself? Have you brought balance to yourself? Is your own house in order? Probably not. And, even if your own house is in order, I would much rather be dealing with people who I know, respect, admire, and who have mutual interests that overlap with mine. Why would I go out to the random average peon and peasant trying to convince them of things? Even if I have my own affairs in order, I would rather dedicate whatever time and energy I have to people that I actually admire, people who I actually care about. And then I draw the line at that. Why would I start trying to save the world? All that's going to do is, number one, most likely waste my time, energy and attention, and number two, it's just going to piss other people off because they aren't interested in seeing the world the way I see it, and I'm just going to be a nuisance to them. And then even if I was starting to build this coalition, all I'm going to likely then do is draw the attention of the cannon, the government's cannon. It's just going to point at me. And is it worth dying for? Is this country, which is nothing other than a fucking plot of land, is it worth dying for? Really? Am I that desperate for status and for other people to admire me that I'm willing to literally, go out there and stand in front of the cannon? Fuck no. I ain't doing it. Now, you might call me a coward. You might say, Mr. Bandido, you are a coward. You won't stand up and join the masses in this uprising. To which I would say, you're absolutely right. If you want to then call me a coward for not wanting to save the world, you are absolutely right. I am a coward then. In your eyes. I'm not here to convince you otherwise. The way I see it is, I have a finite amount of time, energy, and attention in this life. And that cause doesn't interest me. I said at the beginning of the show, if you are one of these people who are super interested in standing in front of the government's cannon and trying to, unite the population and get a big crowd of people together and become revolutionaries, if you want to do that, as I've already said, I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. You do it. That's fine. You're just going to have to live with the consequences of your actions. I'm more speaking to the person here who's not sure. That's who I'm speaking to here. I'm speaking to the person who's stuck in a social media echo chamber, who is hearing all of this bombard them, and they're unsure. They are feeling as though they are taking on the goals, the wishes, the desires, the objectives of other people at the expense of their own. That's who I'm speaking to. I'm speaking to that person who's sort of a little lost in the noise and who is perhaps about to commit themselves to something that they may end up regretting had they not just sat on the idea a little longer and thought it through. That's who I'm speaking to. Because, for those of us in the world who don't care about saving every person, which I don't, again, call me a coward, call me selfish, but I honestly don't care. The only people I care about are myself and the people, the very small number of people in my inner orbit. That's it. Beyond that, I don't really care. People are free to do whatever they want. I'm not going to interfere with them, but I'm also not going to stick my neck out for them either. Neutral in that sense. But for the person watching this who is unsure, what is the big lesson here, folks? The big lesson is be very careful. Be very careful. Because in the online world, and even in the real world too, what can happen is we can fall into this trap whereby we are taking on other people's worldviews, other people's goals and objectives, making them our own because we think it's the right thing to do, when in reality it's not the thing that we are most interested in. We end up taking on things that actually perhaps are not in our best interests, but are in the best interests of someone else. And we then get used like a pawn for someone else's interests. That is the trap we don't want to fall into. And it's a very easy one to fall into, actually, folks, because you've got some very convincing people out there, and you've got a very convincing algorithm and very convincing echo chambers that we can find ourselves in the world of social media. And before you know it, all of a sudden, you are doing things not because you actually want to do them, but you have been convinced by someone else that the thing you are doing is in your best interest, when in reality you are being used because someone else has a goal that they want to achieve in life, and you are the means by which they are going to achieve it. But you are going to get fucked over in the process, potentially. That is the trap that we don't want to fall into. And there's a great example of this, actually. And I'll finish on this. I'm watching Avatar The Last Airbender at the moment. I'm on book 3. I think I've just finished episode 5 yesterday. And the reason why Avatar The Last Airbender is such a great series, there are many different reasons why it's great. But one of the reasons that so many people love that particular show is because of the arc that Prince Zuko goes on. Spoilers coming up. For those of you who have watched the show, you will know what I'm talking about. Prince Zuko has this misguided notion that what he needs to do is find the Avatar, bring the Avatar back to the Fire Nation, and present the Avatar before his father, Fire Lord Ozai. Prince Zuko gets banished from the Fire Nation by his own father. And his own father says the only way you can restore your honor, the only way that you can restore your honor, the only way that I'm going to accept you back as my son into the Fire Nation is if you find the Avatar and you bring the Avatar here, or you kill the Avatar. So either you capture the Avatar or you kill the Avatar and you show me evidence that you have done one of these two things. If you're able to do that, Prince Zuko, I, Fire Lord Ozai, I will restore your honor. And so what does Prince Zuko do? For about 2.5 seasons, Prince Zuko is basically taking this goal, this ambition, this desire that his father has, and Prince Zuko thinks that it's his purpose in life. He takes what he thinks his father wants from him and makes it his life's ambition. But what Prince Zuko comes to realize, with the help of his uncle, Uncle Arrow, who is the Fire Lord's brother, what Prince Zuko comes to realize is that, holy fuck, this isn't what I want. I am doing what someone else wants me to do, and this person is using me and abusing me. And Prince Zuko eventually comes to this conclusion, and he turns, he flips, and instead of hunting the Avatar, he becomes allies with the Avatar. Because up until then, Prince Zuko had taken on the goals and ambitions of some other person. In this case, his father, Fire Lord Ozai. And Prince Zuko pulls himself out of the trap. And this is a trap that we can fall into as well. Prince Zuko fell into it. And he spent so long thinking that the goals and ambitions that he had in this life were his own. And then eventually, 2.5 seasons in, he realizes, holy shit, this actually isn't what I want in life. I don't actually want to do this. I am doing something for someone else, for someone else's benefit, while I get screwed over in the process. It's not what I want to do. What I want to do is actually something different. And folks, do not allow yourself to fall into that same trap that Zuko falls into. There will be a lot of Fire Lord Ozais out there in the world, telling you what you ought to be doing, telling you that you need to go out and find the Avatar, that you need to go out and do this, you need to go out and do that, you need to be part of the revolution, you need to stand up and be part of the uprising with the people, blah 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 blah. Pause and think. Is this what I really want to do? Or am I doing what someone else wants me to do? Now, if you critically analyse this and realise, no, this is actually what I want to do. My life's ambition is truly to go out and convince retard Joe, the weed killer, to try and become part of my coalition. Alright, fine, off you go. If you're on the fence, my dear friend, on the other end of the screen, pause and think. Is this actually what I want, or have I been told what to think by some other person? Has some other person bestowed upon me their goals and objectives and given me the illusion that there's some honour, that there's some benefit lying on the other side of this, when in reality I am being used like a pawn so that this person can extract benefit from my actions, while I, probability-wise, will likely get screwed over in the process. If you're listening to this, be careful, be aware, and make sure that no matter what it is that you do in this life, that you are doing it because you want to do it, not because someone else has told you you had to do it. This is the whole point with Prince Zuko and Fire Lord Ozai. Fire Lord Ozai is telling Prince Zuko what he wants Prince Zuko to do. And Prince Zuko thinks that because it's my father, because it's Fire Lord Ozai, well, this must be my life's ambition. It must be what I have to do in this life, because it's my father, the Fire Lord. And then Prince Zuko realizes, holy shit, I'm in a trap, and I am being used. And it's time for me to actually do what I want to do in this life, and it doesn't involve doing what Fire Lord Ozai, my father, wants. So be it. Folks, don't get tricked into doing things that you do not want to do. There are convincing people in the world that will try to make it out that you're a coward. You're a coward for not joining the revolution. They will use this terminology. Ah, you're a pussy. You're a coward. You've got no balls. You're spineless. You're not a real man for standing up with all the other men in the population. You'll hear all this fucking garbage. Do what it is that you want to do. Don't take on the interests, goals and ambitions of other people and have them use you. You do what you want to do. You forge the path in life that you want to forge. And make sure you're always being aware that that is exactly what it is that you are doing. Because we all need to stand back, folks, at times, pause and reflect, and make sure that we're not doing what other people want us to do. It can happen with fathers and mothers. We see this all the time. We see children doing things that they don't really want to do, but mommy and daddy wants them to do it. Fire Lord Ozai is Prince Zuko's father. Prince Zuko fell into the same trap. Prince Zuko was hell-bent on, his father restoring his honor. He was hell-bent in acquiring the admiration of his father. And you watching this, you may be looking at some of your favourite online influencers, some of your favourite commentators online, and you may be thinking something similar. You may be thinking, oh, well, I want the admiration. I want the credit from my heroes online to flow my direction. I want them to see me peddling their narrative, peddling their agenda. Yes, that's what I want in this life. Is that really what you want in this life? Have you really thought about it? Or are you in the same trap that Prince Zuko was in? Thinking that what he was doing was actually what he wanted to do, when in reality, he was simply in the trap of allowing someone else to dictate the path upon which he was walking in this life. You forge your own path, folks. And don't fall into this garbage notion that you have to save anyone. You see, if you want to make it simple, folks, let's finish off on a really simple note. You see, if you really want to save someone, you know who you ought to save? Save yourself. Because you know what? There's a funny thing that happens. You see, when you restore balance to yourself, you see, whenever you save yourself, a funny thing happens. You actually become more capable. You actually put yourself in circumstances whereby you are better equipped to help those very people that you want to help. If you want to save one person, folks, if you want to start a revolution within. Start there first. And then see, once you do that, once you have fully accomplished that, sit back and analyse the chessboard then. See what your next move is. Make sure you don't make a mistake though. Because a big mistake, a big trap that you could fall into, is doing what other people want you to do. Because it's in their best interests. Don't be a pawn. And make sure that you forge your own path. Just like Prince Zuko. He got there in the end, folks. So can you.